My true belief is curtail your bandwidth. With this attention economy, everyone is fighting. A lot of people say, okay, Instagram is free, Facebook is free. Anything that is asking for your time is the most expensive thing that you are spending your time.
Welcome to On Assignment with me. I'm Natasha Gutierrez. I'm a journalist, and on this podcast, I take you with me behind the scenes on my investigations, interviews, and assignments. And today, I have a New Year special episode actually for everyone. I will continue investigating corruption in the Philippines, but to wrap the year, I thought I would have a more... how do I say it? What's the right word? A less intense episode, something that's less newsy and something that's a little more reflective. So when I first was thinking of this podcast, I've been contemplating doing this for months now, if not a year already. And initially, my idea was just doing an interview-based podcast, talking about people who inspired me, trailblazers, people who were in the front lines of their industries. And I wanted to ask them what they considered was their assignment in life. And the main point of the podcast was to learn from these individuals, from these leaders. And I actually recorded a couple of episodes with that premise in my head. Obviously, since then, between then and launch, the podcast and the idea of the podcast has since evolved to what it is now. But I really want to use one of those episodes that I recorded and share that with you today. And it really made me think about my own life, my values, how I was spending my time. And so I thought, what better occasion to share it than in the new year? So more on this episode. I shot this a few months ago now in Geneva, in Switzerland, at the Young Global Leaders Annual Summit at the World Economic Forum headquarters. And I was there because I was named a Young Global Leader in 2023. The World Economic Forum every year picks young leaders from around the world who they then bring together as a community to learn from each other, grow from each other, build their networks. I was very lucky and fortunate to have been selected in 2023. Our next guest was from batch 2022, but I remember meeting him and getting a really good first impression. I thought he was really modest, but I was really impressed eventually when I heard about the stuff that he'd achieved and accomplished. So our next guest is Dr. Ritesh Malik. He has a fascinating story. He was a medical doctor turned entrepreneur, angel investor, speaker, and philanthropist. He is from India, and in 2015, when he was just in his 20s, he founded Innov8 Coworking, which today is a significant co-working player with 45 locations across India. That's incredible, knowing how huge of a country India is, but also how competitive the business environment is. Now, that business, Innov8, has since been bought by Softbank-backed hospitality chain OYO in 2019. And since then, Ritesh has played an active role in backing over 125 startups and investing in public equities and real estate. He has such an interesting background, and you will realize just how much he's learned through the different phases of his life in the next conversation. Our assignment today is to hear some words of wisdom to inspire us in 2026 to pursue our dreams and perhaps live more purposefully. But before we jump into that conversation, do subscribe to On Assignment with me on Spotify, on Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please follow our channel on YouTube at Natasha_G. That's actually my handle for all socials. And by the way, for those who don't actually follow me on social media, I shared this on Instagram, but I'm happy to share it on this podcast. Within a week of our launch, we were the number one news commentary podcast in the Philippines on Apple. Very proud of that, very surprised, but also very, very grateful. We've also been on the trending podcast lists in the Philippines on Spotify. And so thank you for your continuous support. And if you want to financially support this podcast and independent journalism, do so on natashagutierrez.com. Thank you, and let's get started. You're obviously a man of many titles, doctor, philanthropist, leader, but who are you behind the titles? Who is Ritesh?
I'm still trying to figure it out. Every day is a quest to understand who Ritesh is. I think one thing that I've realized is over time, we actually, once we achieve something, we always want to achieve something else. So also, till your last breath, you can never be satisfied. And currently, I'm in that phase where I want to leave all the accolades that I had so far. I want to go to ground zero and start building my life again.
Wow.
That's where I am right now.
It's so funny how you say, you always want more and more and more. I don't think everyone's like that. I think you're built differently.
More in the sense it's not wealth, it's not money, but also more in terms of passion, more in terms of impact, more in terms of time with my wife, with my daughter, more in terms of self-actualization, learning more about the world. One thing I want to do is learn more about the universe. I want to study physics. So more in terms of the fact that I don't want to. So one thing that I realize, I talk to a lot of people who are way elder than me. One thing that I came out of each of those conversations is that everyone has regrets. One thing that I can tell you is Ritesh Malik does not want to have regrets in life. I tell everyone, if you have an idea, don't postpone. 99% humanity postpones an idea. Don't postpone it. Take the risk. I always say this. Theoretical risk is 10x of practical risk. In your mind, we are positioned as a society to actually judge risk in a very different way. My belief is risk keeps on decreasing by action. Get momentum, get movement, and start anything, and your risk keeps decreasing.
But what do you say to people who are afraid of risks?
You're afraid of risk because you're not moving. If you move towards your goal, the quantum of risk is dependent on the distance from which you are seeing it. If it is a far away distance, the quantum will look really large. The more closer you get, it gets smaller. So my belief on risk is that action, momentum, movement decreases risk. I'll give you an example. I'm a medical doctor. I started India's first co-working space. And while I was starting, I actually had sleepless nights that how will a doctor build a co-working space? And then I realized you don't need to build a co-working space. You need to take the first step. Just take the first step. The first step to write a book is to write first page of the book. And I am a huge believer of the fact that work 50% started. Like example, you've started a beautiful podcast. A lot of people in your profession would not think about it. It's a career move where a lot of people will say, okay, it's a risk. How will it work? But you took the first step. It's all about taking the first step. The moment you start marching, it's like inertia. Newton's first law of motion. A body at rest stays at rest. A body in motion stays in motion until an external force is applied upon it. So my belief is you should be the internal force, apply on yourself, and be a body in motion.
I love how you explain these things still in scientific ways. I mean, that is your background. You were a doctor and you've reinvented yourself into so many different ways. And we'll get more into that, but I wonder how you've become this way. Can you recall some formative experiences in your life, perhaps in your childhood or when you were in school or as you got older, that you think led to you being so courageous and taking risks and reinventing yourself?
Okay, I hail from a middle class family back in New Delhi. My dad is from a small province in India called Punjab. And one thing that I learned early in my life was that overall in life, the only difference between success and failure is not school marks, at least back in India. It is not what you read, it is what you act upon. And my belief in life is very simple. From the beginning of my life, my mom used to ask me that, okay, if you do not become a doctor, what will you do? I said that I will be on the road selling food, but when I sell that food, I will become a McDonald's. I want to do one thing, I want to do it so well, and for me, no work is small work. I do not mind washing washrooms in my co-working spaces. I do not mind washing utensils in my restaurants. For me, every work is important, and you can be the best at your work even if that work is menial for someone. So my belief in life is work really hard, be passionate about your work, be so enthusiastic. Like on a Monday morning, I hated being at an operation theater. In the hospital, I used to always be late, and I used to hate, and I used to ask myself, Ritesh, do you want to do this for the next 50 years of your life? And every day the answer was no. And then one day I said that, okay, I can't do this. I fought with the family and I said, okay, let's start something that I'm deeply passionate about. And the interesting thing about starting is my first idea was not a co-working business. It was a hospitality project. It was an augmented reality project. Before that, I failed 3 ideas. So so a lot of people wait because they think that an idea will come to them. Ideas never come to you. What happens is you start with something, you learn. I have this beautiful quote called action produces information. The moment you start your podcast, you did your first podcast, you learn from the failures, you improvise. And that is how the first product of Facebook Face Mash was horrible. The first product of Twitter was horrible. The first product of all great companies was horrible. And if it was not horrible, that means that it was late. So my belief is that the first product needs to be horrible. Go and build your minimum viable product and you'll be fine. And in terms of my thinking, I've been very grateful. We stay in a joint family. My grandfather has shaped a lot of my thinking. He taught me something beautiful early on in life. He said, Ritesh, your school marks will not define you. What will define you is your understanding of human society and people. Have less number of friends, have deep friendships. Be focused in life, and do not spend even a single day doing something that you're not passionate about. And my grandfather was the only person who supported in my family. So that goes with me. Even if I'm here, one thing that is my superpower is I have JOMO. I have joy of missing out. I don't care if a lot of people are meeting in the evening. I will do what I have to do with my life, because for me, my time is, I say no to 99.99% things that come on my table.
Well, I'm so privileged that you said yes to this
No, of
conversation.
course, this is, I was so excited. I've been a huge fan of your work, and I think what you're doing is phenomenal. So very excited to be here.
Thank you so much. And, we met a couple years ago. We're now sitting together in the World Economic Forum headquarters in Geneva. The world is so big, yet it's so small. And we do remember the people who we meet and who stand out. Because I remembered you when I was thinking of this podcast and trying to curate the guests. I remembered you because I remember meeting you and going, how can a doctor, exactly what you said, how can a doctor go to become an entrepreneur and become not just an entrepreneur, but a very successful entrepreneur? And what I was thinking about and why I wanted you to speak to you as well was the courage it takes. Because in India, being a doctor, that is peak.
Yeah.
That is what most parents, and please correct me if I'm wrong, would want their children to be.
Absolutely.
And you were in an operating theater. You made it. I mean, you did all the hard work. And to pivot.
No, absolutely. I have this thing I have this beautiful concept in Southeast Asia, especially India, China, Pakistan, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. We have a disease called the Asian parent syndrome, wherein our parents decide our careers.
Right.
Early on in my life, my parents decided that, okay, we are doctors. You need to become a doctor. And I said, I didn't know anything. I said, okay, I'll be a doctor. And on courage, I learned this beautiful thing from one of my very, very close friends. And he said, Ritesh, courage will never come to you. Courage is always fake to start with. You can never be courageous without taking the first step. So my belief is, if something is making you fearful, do not ignore that feeling. If it is making you fearful and excited, both together, never ignore that feeling. If something is making you that, okay, I like this thing, but I'm scared of how to start, never ignore that, because I always say this: people die at 25 but are buried when they are 90 because they are in the routine and rut of life.
Wow.
And something I heard beautiful was, even if you win the rat race, you still are a rat. So if you want to truly become something, you need to lose your appetite for fighting a rat race. And what is the difference between a manager and a leader? A manager runs train on time. A leader builds tracks where there were no tracks early on.
Wow.
So for me, what I want to be known when I die is that he was a good leader. He was a leader who was empathetic. He was a leader who understood customers. He was a leader who did not shy away from doing the most menial task in the organization. So I think that is something that at least I want to be remembered, and this is ingrained in my DNA.
Wow. And so that transition from being a doctor to starting Innovate, which we can talk more about, you talked about just not being happy or excited to go into the theater. Where did the idea for Innovate, your co-working space, come from?
This is amazing. So actually never, while I was working at a hospital in Delhi, what happened that I actually started up with a friend of mine an augmented reality company. Now back in 2012, in India, we never had any co-working spaces, and I was responsible for getting the office and all. And in India back then, I think in Noida, there were power cuts for 14 to 15 hours. And as a founder, my 80% responsibility went in actually ensuring that the office works well. While that startup didn't do that well, I got this idea that, just imagine, Ritesh, if there are people like you, there must be more people like you who would not be able to afford office in the central district, business district of a particular area, example in Sydney, Parramatta. And then I said that, can we create a space for 100 Ritishs to come and build together and just share the resources? So that came up with the first idea of co-working back in India. 2015 we started, and the moment we launched, we were very fortunate. We went to Y Combinator, and today Innov8 is actually thinking of a public offering. We are very grateful for all the support that we have got from OYO, and it's been a fantastic journey. And I'll tell you how the idea still came in was, I used to spend a lot of time at Starbucks, and because I didn't have the money, I would go and buy the cheapest coffee, take my extension cord, take my large laptops, two screens, and sit at a Starbucks for 8 hours. The moment barista saw me, and he would be like, "Oh my God, Ritesh has come again," and he will buy the cheapest coffee and take my space for 8 hours. And I said that, can I build a Starbucks for a Ritesh, which is not that expensive, where no one judges me and I have my own space, and where I can meet like-minded people, and that is when the idea of Innov8 came about.
And how big is Innovate now?
Innov8 last I know is, I think, 67 campuses, both under construction and live. We are one of the largest in India. On scale front, we are doing well, but more than that, we take pride in the fact that majority of our customers are actually not extremely large companies. These are mid-scale companies and startups. And we say we are the most loved co-working company in the country.
Do you ever miss being a doctor?
No, never.
You talked about money. Isn't it that being a doctor is probably the more lucrative option than being an entrepreneur if you're just starting off?
If you're starting up, definitely yes, but I have a thesis. I do not like predictability of careers. I do not want to know what I will earn at 35. I do not want to know what I will be at 45. I do not want to know what I'll be at 55. I want a career which is climbing a mountain, where I should be Edmund Hillary of that mountain. I want to discover it on my own. As a doctor, I can tell you, my dad is a doctor. He will earn, as a doctor, 5-10% up or down, they will all be on the same pay grade. I want to be an outlier, not only in terms of money, but in terms of impact. As a doctor, I can see 100 patients a day maximum. That's my physical limit. Using technology, using scale of business, I can impact millions of people. And that is the reason I chose to be an entrepreneur, and I find joy. I'll tell you, in the morning when I go to an Innov8, when I see thousands of Ritesh coming to my place, not worrying about an office and finding like-minded people and building products for India, selling to the world, that gives me a joy which nothing can give me.
I can see it.
I always tell people, big or small does not matter. Don't go for scale, but do something that genuinely makes you happy. And the test is the notification test. When I'm at Innov8 or when I'm doing my work, I don't care who's messaging me. I don't see my phone. And that is one of the tests that I'm not distracted. I'm so much in the zone, and there is a creative genius in everyone. Like example, when you would be writing, you would be in that crazy genius that, okay, I'm doing this. I don't care who's calling me. And I think once you find, actually the purpose of education is individually to help people find their creative genius. Unfortunately, because of scale, today we are actually anti-education. We are forcing non-creative genius into millions of people so that they can be easily regulated by a government. So my belief on education is absolutely opposite of what's happening right now.
That zone that you talked about, that flow, everyone wants that. Everyone wants just to be in that moment. And less is that happening now with so many distractions. What is your advice to people in how to find that passion, that flow? You mentioned if it makes you excited and it makes you afraid, do not ignore that feeling. But how else could you recommend finding that? Because there are people who might be good at something, but love to do something else. Is there a way to sort of be able to merge all of your passions to find that dream flow, that dream job?
I have a theory. If someone says that they're passionate about guitar, should I become a guitarist? The answer is no. There are three things that should coincide for you to find your dream career. The first one is, what is my creative genius? There are certain skills, like example for my sister, she's not a trained dancer, but any song, be it Spanish, be it from the African subcontinent, even if she does not know the lyrics, she can dance really well on them. Now that is her genetic gold mine. Everyone has one genetic gold mine which very few people know about. That is one. The second thing is, and this is called what comes to you effortlessly. There are certain things, like for example with you would do effortlessly. For the same amount of time, other people would take a lot of time to actually develop that genetic gold mine. The second thing is, what are people willing to pay for? That is very important. People forget that, okay, in the quest for passion, they choose careers where people do not want to pay. And the third thing is, what is it that people really care about? And I'll give you an example. I speak to a lot of school students. When a teacher is teaching back in India, most of us are distracted and making some buildings, cars on the back page of their notebook. Focus on those things. Focus on what children are doing when they are distracted by boredom. And those are the clues where, and I'll give you an example. From the beginning, and do you know, at the age of 26, what I got to know about myself? I'm a fantastic interior designer.
Wow.
I love this painting. I love the WEF headquarters. I love greenery. I love architecture. And that is why I was successful at Innov8.
Wow.
Because I love creating experience. I'm an amazing host. I love being a perfect host to people. And when you focus on this genetic gold mine, now just imagine, at the age of 26, I got to know this.
You were a doctor already?
I was a doctor. I was a doctor when I was 24.
Wow.
So
You're a genius, Ritesh.
No, I'm not. My IQ is in double digits. My wife is a genius because she married me. But but I can tell you one thing: IQ is overrated. What is underrated is ability to face fear with courage, with resilience, and ability to walk the path less traveled. I'm a huge fan of Robert Frost. Huge fan. that poem really haunts me when he says that there were two roads that emerged in the woods and I took the one less traveled, and that has made all the difference. In Hindi, there is a beautiful saying, I will translate in English. It says that never follow the crowd. The crowd will give you confidence, but in the crowd, you can never shine.
Wow.
Because a crowd always shines as a community, not as an individual. So my belief is that if you have an idea, if you have something that excites you, but you're not sure of, try it because you will regret it. And I love Jeff Bezos's regret minimization framework. At the age of 75, I don't want to regret. I'll give you an example. Back in my college, I liked a girl. I knew that, okay, my looks aren't that great for her. I follow regret minimization. I went to her and I said that, okay, I really like you. She rejected, that's absolutely fine. But my job is to ensure at the age of 75, I do not regret that, okay, I didn't take a chance. So that's at least how I look at life in frameworks.
Incredible. I'm glad you mentioned those three things in terms of finding what makes you tick, because to just follow a passion blindly without it being lucrative
Yeah, that's stupidity.
is naive,
Yeah, it's
right?
naive.
Because we do need to make a living.
Absolutely.
What other values guide your decisions?
There are a lot of frameworks. One is I want to keep my time. For me, freedom is way more important than money. It's easier to say it today when I have some money, but I have always prioritized freedom over money. And that is the reason I never raised venture capital. I am very, very focused on the fact that I want to take my decisions. I want to go slow. I do not want to ever build the largest company. That is why I said Innov8 is the most loved co-working space. We are not bothered by being the largest. We want to be the most. And my thinking is, can I build a business that is alive for 300 to 400 years? And that long-term thinking is whatever I do it. I think will this investment be valuable in the next 10 years? And every decision that we make is around this. We don't care about tomorrow's results. We don't care about a quarter. We care about if we are taking a decision, will it be valuable in the next 10 years? If the answer is yes, we do it, even if in short term we will make a loss. Very focused on long term, on frameworks, very focused on attention. I am a person, I'm massively introvert. I have, I have, I literally have scare of public, and that is why you will not find me a lot in public. I'll be in a corner working on my project. There's a reason behind that. I had speech disorder as a child. I was bullied significantly. Uh, I had significant speech disorder, and I realized one thing. I just need 10 people in my life, but I need to go really deep. My dad taught me something beautiful. He said, Ritesh, do not create shallow ducks, create deep wells. And in life, I won't have 10 relationships, but they should be lifelong. I need to ensure that those people are not people who are just superficial. So for me, even in my relationships, my best friend is my wife. She's the extrovert one in our relationship. And my true belief is curtail your bandwidth. With this attention economy, everyone is fighting. A lot of people say, okay, Instagram is free, Facebook is free. Anything that is asking for your time is the most expensive thing that you are spending your time. Your attention is so valuable, you can't even imagine. So for me, I'm very focused on my attention. I would rather say no and than overcommit and underdeliver. Focus on being massively conservative on my commitment so that tomorrow I want my relationship longevity. I want people to trust me. For me, trust is very important. I don't give a damn about money if it costs me reputation. Because for me, reputation, by the end of the day, I learned something beautiful from one of the members, board members of a very large corporation. He said, Ritesh, after a while, all your success is background checks. That is so beautiful.
Yes.
That's like just so beautiful. Even when we select YGLs, we have this background check happening that, okay, how is this person? any large scale success, you want to be a minister of parliament, you want to be the prime minister, you want to be CEO of a large corporation, by the end of the day, you are product of your background checks. People take this lightly. People take their reputations on their sleeve. They fight for small things. They go to courts. My belief is do not go to courts. Try and settle things. Do not spoil relationships, because at the age of 50, your success between 50 and 60 is dependent on the reputation that you build between 30 and 50.
You can sleep at night knowing
Absolutely.
that you've done good.
Absolutely.